You're listening to The Jacob Valk Show. He's breaking down the latest and greatest in sports as only he can. Follow him on Twitter at RealJacobValk. Here he is, Jacob Valk.
Hello, sports fans! Welcome to another edition of the Jacob Valk Show. I am Jacob Valk, and you're probably expecting me to start with the train wreck that was Broncos Jets. I'm not going to do that. I want to start with postseason baseball, then I'll go to the NBA Finals, then I'll talk about Broncos Jets because there's a lot that I want to say. At the end of the day, playoff baseball is more important than two garbage teams going at it on a Thursday night. So I'll start with Reds-Braves. There's not much I can say except both of these starters pitched well. You know, they had their changeups working. Ian Anderson looked great. Luis Castillo looked really good. He really only made one bad pitch. I didn't mind how David Bell managed this game. Raisel Iglesias laid an egg, but that's on Iglesias. That's not on Bell. What is on Bell is the fact that the Reds only had 2 hits in this game. Both of them were singles. I mean, they never threatened in this game. At least game 1, they made the Braves work. There was never a moment where you thought, you know what, the Reds have an opportunity to break this game wide open. They went 22 innings without a run in this series. That is inexcusable. I understand that the Reds weren't a great offensive team this year, but you gotta score to win. You know, you can't make Ian Anderson look like the second coming of, you know, Greg Maddux. Or Tom Glavine, or John Smoltz. I mean, Anderson deserves a ton of credit. Had great stuff. Located it well. He kept the Reds guessing. But 2 hits? That doesn't work for me. Obviously. The Reds played like garbage in this series. If they want to improve for next year, they're going to need to shore up the offense. It's just that simple. Moving on now to White Sox athletics. And what did I say about bullpen games? What did I tell you? I don't like him in the playoffs. You're relying on every pitcher to be on his game. There's a big margin for error. That's what I said yesterday. Both teams proved me right. Mike Fiers, I can understand being pulled when he was. He had given up 5 hits in under 2 innings. He did not look good. Was leaving stuff up in the zone, and it just didn't look like he was fooling the White Sox. That's not my issue. My issue is with Rick Renteria pulling Dane Dunning after 2/3 of an inning. Rick, what are you doing, my man? You're trusting the bullpen to get 25 outs? I'm watching this game, and I'm seeing Dunning struggle, okay, fine. He's a rookie making his first postseason start. It's perfectly understandable that he would struggle to start off the game. You have to give him a chance to work out of it. What, you don't trust your offense to recover from a first-inning deficit? That was a joke. I hate bullpen games. And more to the point, it just drags the game on and on and on. That game was over 4 hours long. There was no reason for that. The final score was 6-4. I mean, you ended up in a situation where you had to trust Cody Hewer and Carlos Rodon in that terrible fourth inning where you squandered the lead. I mean, Hewer had a good season, so I can't knock that, but Rodon was dreadful. He only pitched in 4 games. He had an 8.22 ERA. That doesn't work for me. Evan Marshall really didn't lose this game for the White Sox. Rodon did. He comes in for Hewer and just lays an egg. Walk, double, intentional walk. The White Sox are then forced to go to Matt Foster, who promptly gives up 2 more walks. I mean, Foster's a good pitcher. He never should have been in that situation. Rodon was dreadful. Rick Renteria managed this game horribly. Bob Melvin wasn't much better. Although I will say, after Frankie Montas, he was pushing all the right buttons. Wendelken, Trevino, Diekman, Soria, going back to Liam Hendricks. That took guts. I like that. I can't begrudge the Athletics for going with a bullpen game. They're into that analytics garbage. But I didn't think the White Sox were. Now, the other ALDS besides Yankees-Rays features 2 teams that I hate. I hate the Astros, pretty self-explanatory, and I hate the Athletics because they're the poster boys for sabermetrics. Man, I'm going to have a tough time getting into that series. Moving on now to Cardinals-Padres. And I gotta tell you, this is a fun Padres team. They feature players that it's very easy to root for. It's very easy to root for Fernando Tatis Jr. It's very easy to root for Will Myers. It's a great story to get behind. They haven't made the playoffs since George Bush was president. They haven't won a round in the playoffs since Bill Clinton was president. They have a very aggressive GM. They have a good manager in Jace Tingler. This is just an easy team to root for. Some people were getting upset about the backflips. That doesn't bother me. It's the playoffs. They're big home runs. It's okay to get amped up after you hit big home runs that really impact the game. If it's something like a home run to make it 10-0, okay. Don't do a backflip. If it's a May or June game, yeah, don't show up the pitcher like that. I can get behind that a little bit more. But in the playoffs, emotions are running high. It was win or go home for the Padres. These guys can show emotion. I don't mind Tatis doing what he did. I don't mind the Padres doing what he did. I didn't even mind Tatis hitting the grand slam when the Padres were up big and he swung on a 3-0 count earlier in the season. Truthfully, I've never heard that rule before. You don't swing on 3-0 when you have a big lead. I had more of a problem with him swinging 3-0, regardless of the circumstances. It really didn't bother me. I like Tatis. Great young player. Likes having fun. Loves baseball. Like I said, this is an easy team to root for. Moving on now to Brewers, Dodgers. And Clayton Kershaw did his best David Price impression here. For the longest time, Price was viewed as a guy who couldn't pitch in the playoffs. Then in 2018 for the Red Sox, he exorcised those demons. Now, before he fully shakes that stigma, he's going to have to do it again. But it really helped. Kershaw has not been a good postseason pitcher, but he could have fooled you after what he did yesterday. 8 innings of shutout baseball. 13 strikeouts. This is Kershaw. This is what he can do when he's on. If he can keep pitching like this, the Dodgers are unbeatable. My father had a little bit of an issue with Josh Hader being brought in when he was. You're bringing him in the 5th inning. What are you doing? Save him for later. It didn't bother me. Craig Counsell likes to do that. Bring Hader in high leverage situations. And then give him some run. I mean, at the time Hader came in, Mookie Betts was on second. And Corey Seager was at the plate. The score is 3-0 at this point. Not impossible to come back. If it's 4-0 or 5-0, you know, that's the difference between a safe situation and not a safe situation. Hader being brought in when he was didn't bother me. I didn't think Counsell managed this game poorly. The Brewers were just overmatched. They never should have been in this spot in the first place. They're the only team in MLB history to make the playoffs despite never being over 500. Think about that. Not even for a second were they over 500. 8 teams in each league is way too many. I will preview tonight's Cardinals-Padres game. I'm not going to talk about Marlins-Cubs. I talked about it yesterday, and it was rained out. Everything that I said yesterday still holds. The only thing that we know is that Jack Flaherty is going to start this game for the Cardinals. I'd love to know who's going to start for the Padres, but at the time I'm recording this, we don't know who's going to start. I like Flaherty a lot. Has been successful the past couple years. This year, he wasn't good. 4-3 with a 4.91 ERA. That's not good. But in the past, he's been really good. He doesn't have the win total that I'd like to see, but the ERA has been good. He gets a lot of strikeouts. I like Flaherty. He has 4 really good pitches. Lives and dies with his fastball. He has a slider and a curve that he likes to throw against righties. And he has a sinker that he likes to throw against lefties. He can also throw the curve against lefties, but it's more effective when it's tailing away from the hitter than it is coming right towards him. The key for Flaherty is going to be establishing his fastball. It sounds cliche, but with him, it's the truth. If he can locate his fastball, it sets up his off-speed pitches. He's very good at punching guys out with them. He just hasn't done it a lot this year, but that's because of the craziness of this season. He's a really good pitcher. I think he'll show it tonight. I'd love to make a pick for this game, but I really can't because I have no idea what the Padres are going to do. Speaking of previews, it is time to preview the NBA Finals. I'm not going to spend too much time on it. Dragic and Adebayo aren't going to play tonight. They are listed as doubtful, so you're going to see Kendrick Nunn and Kelly Olynyk slide into the 1 and the 5 spots respectively. There's not much hope for the Heat in this game. If they're going to win, they need Jimmy Butler to go off for 35. And they need Tyler Hero to go off for 25. It's a tall ask, but it's the only way they can win. I mean, Nunn and Olynyk aren't bad players. They're just not Dragic and Adebayo. The Lakers are going to take advantage of that. This game's going to be a rout. I think they're going to win by 20. And we're well on our way to seeing the Lakers storm their way towards another title. Okay. Now it's time to talk about Broncos Jets. Early on, I gotta tell you, I had some confidence in the Jets. Sam Darnold with that incredible 46-yard run to score. That was unbelievable. I've never seen him do anything like that before. I knew he could run, but I didn't know he could do that. The Jets let Brett Rippon drive down the field a little bit, but they hold the Broncos to a field goal. 7-3. Okay, baby steps. The Jets are looking good. The next drive, Sam Darnold, who was cooking, having his best game of the season, gets thrown to the ground hard. He ends up spraining his shoulder. Now, we didn't know that at the time. We just learned about it after the game. Joe Flacco comes in, and I'm screaming at this point. Of course, the second Darnold looks good, he gets hurt again. This is a guy with injury concerns. He's never started 16 games in the NFL. In his 2 full seasons, he hasn't done it. But Darnold toughed it out. Give him credit. Was he ineffective afterwards? Yes. You want to tell me I shouldn't get on him too much for being ineffective? Because he was playing with a sprained right shoulder? Look. Quarterbacks play through pain. Every NFL player plays through pain. Especially when you're playing behind this garbage offensive line that allowed Darnold to be sacked 6 times. You're going to need to learn to play through pain. That's not an excuse for me. I mean, that's one thing I haven't talked about enough. Joe Douglas's failures with the offensive line. He had a home run with Mekhi Becton, who never should have been in that game. Bad job by Gase in putting him in, but having said that, that was really a must-win game for the Jets to get their fans off their backs for a little bit. I can understand wanting to put him in. But having said that, you have to look out for his best interest. There is no reason to push it. I understand that Connor McDermott is dreadful, but Becton's future is more important than the now. That was a bad job by Gase. But other than that, the rest is Joe Douglas. Alex Lewis has been good. I like him. Connor McGovern has been useless. Greg Van Roten has been useless. George Fant has been okay. Chuma Edoga is a solid run blocker, but nothing else. This offensive line is a disaster. It was supposed to be reinvented. That was the thing with Douglas. This guy knows offensive linemen. Well, what was I saying before the season? Offensive line continuity is really important. It's what everyone has talked about on the Jets broadcast. These guys have never played before. It's going to take time for them to develop chemistry, blah, blah, blah. I get that. The Jets don't have that time. It's on the players, and it's on Joe Douglas. I'll say this. It's really making me happy to see all the heat that Douglas is getting, because he deserves it. I've been saying this since March. I thought he had a good draft, but outside of Becton and Mann, no one from that draft class is even on the field. I can understand if they're playing poorly, at least they're getting some experience. They're not even on the damn field. After Darnold came back in, the Jets were lifeless. Pierre Desir had the most frustrating game I've ever seen from a cornerback. He gets mossed by Jerry Jeudy, gives up a big catch to Tim Patrick, and he ends up with 2 interceptions, one of which he returns to the house. That was the most maddening game I've ever seen in my life from a defensive player. I don't know whether to hate the guy or love the guy. I've defended Sam Ficken. He looked good. Believe it or not, I actually know a little bit about this team. People were saying to me, oh, Jacob, Ficken's not that good. Blah, blah, blah. All that garbage. Ficken was 5 for 5 on his field goals. He was doing something right. The Jets special teams isn't bad. It's not great, but it's pretty good. They gave up one big punt return, but other than that, they've actually been good this year. I'll move on to the fourth quarter. I know I'm bouncing around a little bit, but my head is still spinning from what happened in the past 12 hours. With about 8 minutes to go in the fourth quarter, Brian Poole comes up with a big interception on a reeling Brett Rippon. Rippon looked okay. He didn't look great. He made some good throws, but nothing spectacular. Made some boneheaded decisions, I'll tell you that. He gifted the Jets this game. The Jets drive 25 yards down the field. 4th and 1 at Denver's 19-yard line. 6:33 left to go in regulation. Adam Gase made the right decision to send Sam Ficken out. I saw some people getting on Gase for that. No. That was the right decision. Rippon was reeling. He had thrown interceptions on his past 2 drives. We've established that Sam Darnold really shouldn't be trusted. I mean, you want to tell me you hand it off to a guy like Gore and let him try to plow ahead for a yard? What happens if you don't make it? Then you're put in a situation where the Broncos are just going to sit on the football, take a bunch of time off the clock, and you're leaving Darnold in a really tough spot. I have no faith in Darnold in a 2-minute drill situation. That was the right decision to kick the field goal. But this pitiful Jets defense somehow gives up a 10-play drive that results in a Brandon McManus field goal. The key to this game was the asinine face mask penalty that Quinnen Williams took on 3rd and 6. There was no reason to grab Rippon's face mask there. I'll tell you what, Josh Allen wouldn't have done that. Mike McCagnon's parting gift. An idiot defensive tackle. I'll get into the penalties a little bit more in a minute, but I want to talk about what happened after this specific penalty. It's 3rd and 7. Tim freaking Patrick finds a hole in the zone. Lamar Jackson, who was called up from the practice squad to play corner because the Jets are so dreadful there. That's why I was screaming for corners in the offseason. I could see this coming. Jackson has no idea what he's doing, and Patrick catches a big pass for 31 yards to put the Broncos in field goal position. Brandon McManus has a cannon for a leg. It doesn't matter that Rippon took a terrible, intentional grounding penalty. McManus can hit from 53. Right there. I knew it. I knew Darnold wasn't gonna lead a miraculous drive. It didn't matter that he had the 2-minute warning. It didn't matter that the Jets had all their timeouts. You had to know the Jets were losing that game. And then the coup de grace. 2 minutes left in the game. Broncos ball. If the Jets use all their timeouts and they stop the Broncos from getting a first down, the Jets get the ball back, and at least they have a chance to win. The first play, Melvin Gordon gets stuffed running up the middle. He bounces it outside for a 43-yard touchdown run. At that point, I just started laughing. I couldn't help but laugh. The Jets are a comedy. It's like that line from Joker. I used to think that the Jets were a tragedy, but now I realize that it's a bleeping comedy. They are. They're a joke. I have a new coping mechanism for Jets fans. Don't watch them expecting to win. Watch them expecting to laugh at their ineptitude. Let's try it against the Cardinals and see what happens. Yet somehow, when the Broncos were just trying to ice the game away, I don't know why they tried to run a play on 4th down. If it was just to get Rippon some experience, or they tried to take a bunch of time off the clock, I don't know why you wouldn't just punt it. But whatever, that's not the issue. The issue is that when the Broncos were running a play on 4th down, the Jets committed 2 penalties in their quest to kill Brett Rippon. This is what can happen with Greg Williams' defenses. We all remember Bountygate. Greg Williams has a tendency to want his players to be dirty. And you saw it. 6 personal fouls, 11 penalties for 118 yards. The Jets are undisciplined. Their defense is poorly coached. They have a head coach that's in way over his head. Yet somehow Gase is keeping his job. Now, I don't want to be called a Gase apologist or anything. I just consider myself a realist. I wanted him gone after the Broncos loss, but I didn't want him gone because I think he's a terrible coach. I don't think he's a terrible coach. I think he's below average. I don't think he has a handle on this team at all. I mean, we talk about the offensive struggles. The Jets have given up over 30 points in their last 3 games. You'd need Patrick Mahomes as your quarterback to keep up. Did I want Gase fired after this loss? The answer is yes. But I wanted him gone to put him out of his misery. It's like when you have a dog and it's really sick and it can't go on. It's in constant pain. You put it down. You have a relative in the hospital that's being kept alive by machines. You can pull the plug. You have a horse with a limp. You put it down. That's what Gase is. You can tell he's in over his head. There's no good that's going to come from him staying. For no other reason than the fact that you'll engender some goodwill from your fans for once. Fire him. Put him out of his misery. Please. The writing's on the wall. Nothing's going to happen in the next 12 games to save Gase's job for next year. Get a head start on the coaching search. You want to tell me that a firing isn't going to do any good? The Jets are still going to be bad, so why fire Gase? I get that point. I mean, at this point, Greg Williams shouldn't even be the interim head coach. You can't. You cannot make him the interim head coach after that performance yesterday. And after the Jets' defense has been anemic all year. It should be Brant Boyer. You want to leave Williams in charge of the defense? You don't have much of a choice. One thing that I've seen Joe Caporoso say, and I do respect his opinions, he's very smart. He said that Jim Bob Cooter, the running backs coach, should be in charge of the offense. He has offensive coordinator experience. If Gase and Loggins get fired and Brant Boyer becomes head coach, I have no problem with him putting Cooter in charge of the offense. I mean, Boyer's a good special teams coordinator. If the new head coach wants to bring in his own guy, Boyer's going to land on his feet. He'll get another special teams coordinator job. You know, at the end of the day, you can't want Gase gone because this team is underachieving. It's not. No one could make this team a winner. You want to tell me that a better coach would have won this game against the Broncos? Fine. But I have news for you. There's not much of a difference between 1-3 and 0-4. You're still not making the playoffs after that. You should want Gase gone because he's defeated. The biggest criticism of Gase that's apt, in my opinion, is the fact that he gives up too early. There's no sense that if the Jets are down by a couple scores at the half, that he's going to rally the troops. I mean, I don't mind if the players feel defeated at the end of a game. The coach can't. The coach needs to be the eternal optimist. Now, having said that, in post-game press conferences and behind closed doors, rip the players a new one and say, yeah, you played like garbage. We played like garbage. We can't do that again. Just use more colorful language. I get that. But when you're coaching, when you're actually coaching a game, it ain't over till the fat lady sings. Gase got some heat for calling timeouts when Rippon was just taking kneel downs. That's the right decision. Something crazy can happen. Rippon can fumble a snap, the Jets can return it to the house, and they recover an onside kick. The odds of that happening are slim to none, but it's still there. Gase did the right thing in calling timeouts. But he just has a tendency to give up. Those were necessary timeouts. Those weren't, let's get the ball back and score timeouts. At the end of the day, no good is going to come from Gase staying, and no good is going to come from Gase leaving. Connor Hughes of The Athletic reported right after the Jets game that Gase was going to stay. Ian Rappaport reported it before the game. Hughes reported it after the game. And he wrote an interesting sentence. With the Jets firing Gase after 20 games as head coach, after giving him no talent to work with, make them an appealing job. I'm paraphrasing a little bit, but that's the basic point. He has a point. That makes sense. Everyone can see that the Jets have no talent. I mean, if the Jets go 0-16, which is a real possibility, I've never said that before about any Jets team, but there is a real possibility that this team can go 0-16. If they can't beat Brett Rippon, what chance do they have against Justin Herbert? The next winnable game on their schedule. What chance do they have against Ryan Fitzpatrick or Tua Tagovailoa? The best we can hope for is 3-13. If the Jets finish 3-13, 0-16, or anywhere in between, we all know Gase is going. Does Douglas stay? Does Douglas get another offseason to sit on his hands and do nothing? I don't buy the notion that Chris Johnson put a cap in place on Joe Douglas. Douglas has denied that. Johnson has denied that. The only person who has said that is Manish Mehta. I don't trust Mehta's reporting. This guy has assembled one of the worst rosters I've ever seen. The Idzik teams may have been better than this. At least the Idzik teams had their rookies playing. Granted, they sucked, but at least they played. At least we saw they sucked. Does Douglas get another year? I hope not. This guy's an idiot. This guy is clueless. The owner is clueless. The head coach is in over his head. The quarterback is a bust. There's no hope. At this point, root for losses. Root for the first overall pick. Tank for Trevor. Because there's no chance that the Jets are going to screw him up, right? Like I said, they're not a tragedy. They're a comedy. They're a three-ring circus masquerading as a football team. The only thing that's going to save this team is Woody Johnson coming back from the UK. Now, Woody wasn't a fantastic owner or anything, but he's light years better than his brother. Chris Johnson knows as much about football as I do about running a Fortune 500 company. As Jets fans, we need to hope and pray that Woody comes back, realizes that the GM is inept, the head coach is in over his head, and the quarterback is a bust. He moves on from all three of them, and we try it again with Trevor Lawrence. May God have mercy on your soul, Trevor. Alright, it's time for me to make my 3 NFL picks. My first under 500 week, I went 1-2. I'm 5-4 overall. Let's look to get back in the win column. I'll start this off with an upset. I like the Bears to cover the 2.5 against the Colts. I understand that the Colts looked great last week, but it was against the Jets. I don't think they're that great. Nick Foles had a great fourth quarter comeback. I mean, this is what Foles does. He comes in under bad circumstances and plays well. It's in Chicago. The Bears are better than the Colts. They have a better running game, a better receiving core. I'm not 100% sold on Phillip Rivers. I'm not 100% sold on Foles either, but I feel like I'm a little more confident in Foles than I am Rivers. So give me the Bears plus 2.5. And I have a couple picks for the national games. I like the Niners -7 and the Packers -7. The Eagles look terrible. Carson Wentz has played like garbage. There are some calls for him to be benched and Doug Peterson to be canned. It's going to be interesting to see what happens there. I understand that the Niners are entering this game banged up, but the Eagles are free-falling right now. And I think this short-handed Niners team can take advantage of that. They took advantage of a dysfunctional Jets team. They can take advantage of a dysfunctional Eagles team. Give me the Niners -7. As for Packers -7, how are they just 7-point favorites? The Falcons are terrible. Dan Quinn needs to go. Aaron Rodgers has been great this year. 9 touchdowns, no interceptions. I understand that Alan Lazard is hurt, but that doesn't mean anything to me. Rodgers can make bad receivers look good. More to the point, it seems like Devontae Adams is going to play. If he does, fantastic. If he doesn't, well, Rodgers still has Aaron Jones at his disposal, Marquise Valdes-Scantling as well, Robert Tonyan. Like I said, he's made these terrible receivers look like Jerry Rice. If only Darnold could do that. So to recap my picks, Bears plus 2.5, 49ers -7, and Packers -7. Moving on now to the 76ers, moving very quickly and hiring Doc Rivers as their head coach. They signed him to a 5-year deal. He was let go on Monday and was hired on Thursday. For starters, the Sixers are looking to make that jump from good to great. Doc Rivers does not have recent playoff success. This guy hasn't made it out of the second round since 2012. What makes you think he's the right guy to get the Sixers over the hump? Secondly, think about Rivers' system. It's always had shooters. The Sixers don't have shooters. I don't like the idea of Simmons and Embiid in Doc Rivers' system. I think that is going to end terribly for the Sixers. I don't think Rivers is going to bomb and be terrible or anything, but Mike D'Antoni would have made so much more sense. If anyone could choreograph an offense for the Sixers, it's D'Antoni. We know they're good defensively. It's on the offensive side of the ball that they have trouble. And Darvin Ham, I thought, could have come up with some really creative sets using Ben Simmons in a Giannis-type role. Instead, the Sixers moved quickly on Doc Rivers. They gave him a 5-year deal. I don't think this is going to end well. The Sixers went with the sexy name instead of the smart hire in Ham or D'Antoni. I don't like this fit. Also, one thing that's been bothering me is that I said a while ago that Rivers played for the Houston Rockets. I thought he made a ton of sense there, and I still think he makes sense there. And I like the fact that he played there as an added incentive. He never played for the Rockets. He played for the Hawks. And I had that image of him in a red jersey in my head. So I misattributed it to the Rockets. He was never a Rocket. He was a Hawk, Clipper, Knick, and Spur. I'm sorry for the mix-up. Until Monday, I am Jacob Valk saying, may God be with the President and his confidants during their fight with the coronavirus, and shame on anyone expressing glee over their diagnoses.